Welcome back. This is Hope at Dawn right here at Hope TV, where you look and you live. My name is George Gishoro. We are into the second hour of the show. What a show we are having this morning. And this day being Tuesday, it's of course one day at a time. And we have another guest on set ready to share their story of what they are doing, what the Lord has put in them, and what they are doing for the society, for the country as well. And of course, you can be part of the show. And this is on Hope TV Kenya across all our social media platforms, YouTube included, on X, on Instagram as well. Get us there on Facebook as well. You can interact with us, like, follow, comment. We will appreciate that so very much. Also, get us on WhatsApp 0708 222 323. And of course, we will appreciate your interaction and your feedback. Being one day at a time, this morning, it's all about the story on epilepsy. And to help us with that conversation, we are hosting Reverend Frederick Beuchi, and he will be telling us more about himself and also his campaign about epilepsy. So without much ado, allow me to welcome Mr. Beuchi, Rev Beuchi, to the studio. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Good to have you this morning.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much.
You're well?
I am well.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I like your hoodie.
Thank you. You know, I was turning between coming here very official, putting on my white collar. And then I was like, today so many things are happening. So when I stepped out, the first person that I saw, because I was right in town, the first person I saw pointed out as, unaona majenzi wameanza kutoka na za white. Like, those were his words, to be honest. And I was like, wow, okay, so this thing is real. And then I'm walking, I get to archives. At the back of my mind, I'm thinking, like, it's too early. But there were people already at archives, and they're having vuvuzelas. And I was listening into your previous conversation. And it's true, we cannot overlook you know, the conversation that the young people are trying to bring on table. And to be honest, I think even the reactions from the leaders, the president himself, shows you that they have seen some sense into it. And so today, even as we begin this show, I just want to call upon all my fellow young people to also exercise some restraint, even as they go about expressing themselves, and to really take care when they are out there, and look out for their colleagues as well, so that it doesn't go overboard, and then we miss out the point that we are trying to push. Otherwise, thank you so much for having me today.
Karibu sana. A brief introduction of yourself.
My name is Reverend Frederick Beuchi. I serve with the Methodist Church in Kenya. I currently serve as the chaplain of the Methodist Hospital, but specifically I'm attached to the Methodist College of Health Sciences, where I'm in charge of the students and medical doctors interns. So that's where I serve. And now, beyond serving as a reverend and as a chaplain, I'm also an epilepsy awareness activist. I'm also a caregiver of a person living with epilepsy.
And that is a conversation that we will be having today, this morning. But growing up, how was Rev Beuchi growing up?
Wow. I was born in Mombasa. Actually, this morning I came from Malindi. Yeah, that's where I was over the weekend. So I was born in Mombasa. I'm the firstborn in a family of 5 siblings. I have 3 sisters and 1 brother. And the last-born sister, her name is Mercy. She's the one who was diagnosed with epilepsy when she was at the age of 2. She got epilepsy after suffering from malaria, which escalated to being cerebral malaria. And then it ended up affecting her brain. So when we treated malaria and it was over, it had already affected her brain. And now it left her now with the risk of having epilepsy. So Basically, we have been brought up with both parents are still there.
Yeah.
We are a Christian family. And I should say some situations, circumstances happen in life, and they really either bring lessons to you as a family or change completely how you have been looking at things.
Yeah.
Because in the same conversation of epilepsy, I never imagined that in our family there would be someone coming out with a chronic disease like epilepsy. And when it happened, it really got us back to think that, God has a roadmap of our lives. And so many other times we don't know what will happen next. But again, we are being reminded that His grace is always sufficient to an extent that He cannot give you something that He knows for sure you cannot handle. But I should say at the onset, this was very difficult. My sister was having seizures after every 20 minutes. And seizures means that she would get an attack, fall down, jerk, bite her tongue, her lips. And there was no she would fall any place. So sometimes on the stones, sometimes in water. Unfortunately, one day she fell on fire.
Wow.
And she got burnt. I think my mom was outside, so whatever brought her in quickly was a smell of like meat burning. So she rushed and got her up, rushed her to the hospital. We were able to treat the wounds, but it was now like the beginning of everything that was happening then. The seizures became so much. I remember I was working because my first course I'd started was shipping management. So I was working, but every time you come back home, you find your sister has a fresh injury, a fresh cut. And I began seeing my mom looking at us like we are either asking the question, is she really taking good care of our sister? And it was really taking a toll over her. One day I decided now to quit my job, come home to help mom take care of my sister. Around 2013. Around that time, so it was that when my sister is up in the morning, because she needs someone to sit with her right there, then I would do the house chores. At the beginning of everything, I kept praying and asking God if one day my sister wakes up and she stays even for an hour without a seizure, God, I'll not go back to the work that I was doing. I will devote myself to serve you.
Wow.
And so in that same spirit, one day I was just doing the house chores, the TV was on, and I saw a conversation with doctors talking about epilepsy. And they were going to have an epilepsy open day in Nairobi. So I told my mom, let me go. We might not be able to go with my sister, but let me just go and see what can happen. I came all the way to Nairobi. It was at Uhuru Park. I lined up. There were so many people until evening. I was able to meet some of these specialists, talk to them, and they were so moved. Like all the way from Mombasa to Nairobi. I was like, yes. So one doctor promised that the moment he will be coming to Mombasa, I take my sister to the hospital. They did a fresh diagnosis, and they were able to determine what type of epilepsy she was suffering from, and she was put in the right medication. 6 months later, we began seeing changes. And I remembered that I had not asked God for much. I just wanted God to let my sister stay seizure-free for 1 hour.
Just 1 hour.
And this thing one day happened. And I remembered what I had promised God. I left everything, went back to college, did theology, and trusted God to lead me in the path of ministry that He wants me to serve. And that's how I became a reverend.
Wow.
So today my sister is 16 years old, and she has been seizure-free for about 6 years.
Wow.
And I was like, we cannot stay there. Because in the journey of trying to help my sister, I found out that there are so many other people that have been affected with this condition. Children and even older people. And then from where I'm coming from in Mombasa, there were a lot of myths and misconception around,
Yeah.
you know.
I think it's countrywide.
It's country, it's countrywide.
Yeah.
But you know, when you begin to talk about uchawi, uganga, majini, you know, everybody's mind goes back to Mombasa. And so you can imagine what people were saying about this whole condition that our sister was suffering from. And I said, her getting better already is a testimony. But because of these myths and misconceptions that are there in the community, I need to do something. So I started to ask for opportunities to raise awareness in our church. Mind you, at that point in time, I was a leader for the youth. My mom was a leader for the women fellowship, and dad was the chairman of the church. But because of that condition, we were kind of like sidelined because people were saying we did something to our sister so that we could get riches. Wow. That is one of the things that other people say. And I was like, wait a minute, I need to prove these people wrong. Because from what I had gathered is epilepsy is a medical condition. It's caused by damage of the brain. Anyone can get a damage of the brain through an injury at any point in life. Whether it's a mother giving birth and they experience birth complications, whether you experience an accident, maybe through a boda and you hit your head, and so many other things. For my sister, it was cerebral malaria. There are other infections that also affect the brain that can lead to one being at risk of getting epilepsy. So this is a medical condition, and it wasn't what other people were saying. So I took it upon myself to now start raising awareness. And one day I thought, okay, I've not heard so much about this condition talked about in the country. How then are we going to really create that attention and even get the media to talk about it? I decided in 2018 to do a walk from Nairobi to Mombasa. And when I talked to my friends, it was shocking that they were telling me that's almost impossible to do because they have had people doing long walks, but Nairobi to Mombasa is about 482 kilometers. And at the edge of SGR flights and cars all over, you don't imagine someone just deciding to walk. And I said, no, I'm going to do it now that it doesn't seem like it's a common thing for people to do. And one of my friends in that group, when I was sharing, had a friend who was a journalist. So in their conversation, he went and mentioned it. And before I knew it, I was being called by this journalist to have a conversation like, why are you walking? And I said, I'm doing this so that I can raise awareness about epilepsy. I didn't want my parents to know about it because I knew they wouldn't allow me to do such like a thing. But you know, I mean, you are a journalist, and so you know when a story is catchy, everyone wants to be the first.
Definitely.
So I think a week before I started my walk, there was already a piece on the papers that said a man wants to walk from Nairobi to Mombasa, you know, and my name was there. Glad they didn't have my photo.
My photo.
But
Your photo.
yeah, but now papers are sold everywhere. So mom grabs one of those papers one day and
voila, who's covered in the news.
Exactly.
It's
and
my son.
She calls me and she's like, and I must confess here that time I had to lie. I was like, Frederick Beuchi is not not the only I'm not the only one, mom. So yeah, and I'm so passionate about raising awareness, but I don't think I've ever thought about doing such like a thing. Sasa now watu wa media ni nani? Because they want to be sure that when you start the work, you will do it to the end.
The story lazima I build.
I tell you, kuna sasa wale wakajitolea to follow me on the journey. We want to make sure you will not ask for a lift. Exactly. All that. And I tell you for sure, I think the grace of God was so sufficient. So
you started in Nairobi?
Yes. And every day I
Your
was...
destination was Mombasa?
Mombasa. Every day I was doing an average of about 35 to 40 kilometers.
On foot?
On foot. And I remember the first day I walked from Nairobi all the way to Makutano Junction. The second day from Makutano to Salama.
Yeah, roughly how many hours?
Well, I would do like the whole day, because I will start in the morning and towards the evening, I have timed myself so that the sun sets when I'm closer to a town where I can get a place to sleep.
Yes.
And every small town along the road, I would stop and I would look where there are people or boda guys, and I'll tell them that I am walking, I'm doing this because of epilepsy. Surprisingly, by the time I finished the walk, of course, it was tough. By the time I
How many days did you take?
12 days.
12?
Yes.
That was actually even fast. 12 days walking from Nairobi to Mombasa.
12 days, yeah. I remember being on the road, and because by the time I was going, there were these truck drivers, they would see you. You know, there are some, and you know, going to Nairobi, there's no shortcut.
Yes, there's no shortcut.
If you take a shortcut, you'll find yourself in the jungle or in National Park, and you don't want to find yourself there. So it's just the road. And these guys were going to drop maybe, luggage in other countries. And now they're coming back. And because I was in the same attire, so at some point after day 4 or 5, they were hooting. They would hoot. And I started clicking. It's like these people must have seen me going, and now I'm still on the road. And they're thinking... Exactly. So I had 2 petitions to give to the governor in Mombasa and also in Kwale, where I come from.
And you successful.
Successfully did that. And I was just asking them if at least they can make anti-epilepsy medicine available for the children for free in our hospitals. That would do us good. And after that, I got recognized by the National Epilepsy Coordination Committee. It's an umbrella body that supports awareness and policy issues about epilepsy in the country. I joined as a board member in 2015, and in 2019, I was elected as the national secretary, which is a position I serve to date. And you know, positions of leadership come with the responsibility. True. So from 2018, I figured out, okay, what else can I do to show that I'm still passionate about this work? I decided now to go climb Mount Kilimanjaro. I knew I wasn't the first one to do that. So many people have gone there. But to make it difficult or to make it hard and for it to attract attention, I wasn't going to use a car or a plane to go there. I cycled from Nairobi to Arusha.
TZ.
It took me 3 days. So this time I had a team of 10 people. We started from Nairobi the first day up to Kajiado, then Kajiado up to Namanga. When we arrived in Namanga, 6 of them could not continue. So they came back. And you know, the expedition is on your name as Beuchi Mount Kilimanjaro Epilepsy Challenge. So there's no way you can give up.
No way you can give up.
We crossed 4 of us, and we did it all the way to Arusha. When we arrived in Arusha, 3 said, this is your decision to proceed to Mount Kilimanjaro. We've done our part, so you continue. I said, okay, fine. Then there was a friend of mine who wanted to just come and help me climb Mount Kilimanjaro and not necessarily cycle. So we ended up being 2. Surprisingly, because that was my first time to do Mount Kilimanjaro, the morning when now those guys that we had asked them to come and help us go climb Mount Kilimanjaro came in a whole bus. And I called the guide, a 56-year-old man who has done Kilimanjaro so many times. I was like, all these others are also guests. They were like, no, these people are here to take you up there. And then I realized that when we want to go to Kilimanjaro, one person is taken up there with 12 people. Each of these person has some work to do for you. You have 2 people who carry your bags, 2 people who carry your tents. You have a cook. You have someone who serves you food. You have someone who does water so that you can just wash your face.
Yeah.
And then you have 2 guides.
Yeah.
And then you have 2 other guys who carry nothing. And I was like, why add them into this whole trip and the way it's expensive?
Yeah.
Can they just stay? And there's one guy who carries an oxygen tank.
Yeah.
And then he was like, you see these 2 guys who carry nothing, they are very important because they will carry your body when you die.
My friend.
For sure, for real. And he was like,
that's their role.
There is no way we can go up there without these 2 guys. So the question was, so people die there. And he was like,
so, they're even preparing you.
They prepare you.
So unaweza enda lakini ukishuka ni hao watakubeba.
Exactly. So you see, when we talk about extreme sports expedition, that is the cost that you have to pay.
But you still decided,
I still decided, because this time I was raising awareness across Africa. And I had this flag that I wanted it hosted up at the peak of Uhuru. To spread awareness about epilepsy in Africa. And I was ready to take the risk. Day 4, to be honest, I knew that I wasn't coming back. So I called by day 4. I called the guide and I told him, I know if I proceed beyond this point, I will not go back alive. But I don't want you guys to quit. If I die, ask these people to put me in glacier, because by day 4 you've started to pass through glacier, like these big ice blocks. So if they put my body there, I will not, and my body will remain fresh. For them to go all the way up, hoist the flag that had been written Angaza Kifafa Africa, and then I'll come back and take my body back home. You see? And I was so encouraged by the guide, like, you will make it, you will make it. Well, 7 days later, eventually I was able to make it to Uhuru Peak, which is the highest point in Mount Kilimanjaro. And we started now coming back. And when I came back, a lot of awareness, the word had gone round. I started getting more opportunities on media. I started getting nominations for awards. The first one was in Morocco, Youth Epilepsy Advocate of the Year. I got nominated for the Golden Light Award by International Bureau for Epilepsy. And that is what now encouraged me to keep doing epilepsy awareness.
Well, Rev Frederick Beuchi is speaking to us this morning about his story on epilepsy and the many things that he has been able to do, and he continues to be a champion of epilepsy in the country. We are taking a short break. We are coming back to continue with this amazing story. Any question, any query you could be having, 0708 222 323. That is the WhatsApp platform. Hope TV Kenya across all our social media platforms. Amazing, inspiring conversation. See you after this break.
The Asian community in Kenya has been nationally recognized as the 44th tribe of the people of this great nation.
For me, God is real in Christianity. I talk to Him, He talks to me. I fail, He forgives me.
When I first read the first book of Genesis, it gave me an orderly sense of accounts of creation. Day 1 is what He does. Day 2, He creates this. Day 3.
Every third Thursday of the month, we bring you Asia Testify,
where we will be listening to life-transforming stories of Asian believers who have walked with the Lord. Only here on Hope TV. Look and live.
Dawn, and we are having Reverend Frederick Beuchi, and the story, this is his story on epilepsy. Any question you could be having, get in touch with us across our social media platforms, on WhatsApp as well. Some of the awards, we left it at the point of the awards that you have been able to bag, thanks to the campaign that you have been pushing. Morocco, you said Morocco?
Yeah, Morocco, this was the Africa Youth Epilepsy Advocate of the Year by the Epilepsy Alliance Africa. And then in 2019, I was nominated for the Golden Light Award by International Bureau for Epilepsy. But I became second. And then a lady from Uganda was able to get it. Because that award is given to one person per continent. So it's that competitive. But that was an encouragement for me actually to continue with the work that I was doing. And so I figured out, now that I had been given an opportunity to serve in the National Epilepsy Coordination Committee Board, my mandate had expanded, and we were even beginning now conversations of how we could get to the relevant ministries within the government and petition them to really support. Because epilepsy is not only a non-communicable disease, but it's also recognized as a disability. So any person who has epilepsy, they're eligible also to be done an assessment of how they can acquire a disability card. Nowadays they call it a disability certificate. So if you are in a space where a condition has been recognized twice, and yet you don't see any allocation of a budget to really either raise awareness or even to cater for the people that are suffering from this condition, then it tells you that either there is no enough data that informs the government of how to help these people, or maybe it's just negligence. And we came into that space now to push for that. And after a while, we were able to really bring now the Ministry of Health on board, of course, under the NCD department. And as NECC, we were able to come up with the first epilepsy management guideline that primarily is a tool for healthcare workers to be able to diagnose and also give treatment to people living with epilepsy. So that was really a mileage that we had gained when it comes to pushing for the reforms and seeing that epilepsy is really being recognized. And in that same spirit, we started now thinking of also having support groups for patients living with epilepsy, having support groups even for the caregivers of persons living with epilepsy. And that is what helped us now to crown the Angaza Kifafa campaign, which basically was offering refresher training courses for medical workers and also training for the community health volunteers. Nowadays they're called community health promoters, and then doing like a roadshow caravan now to cover the many other areas. And so far we have done almost 20 to 21 counties. And we are hoping that we will continue to receive some support to do the rest of the counties. But that did not stop me from doing the individual, awareness that I kept doing. And so last year, now I resorted to saying that after every 2 years, I'll be doing an extreme sport expedition. 2018 was the walk. 2020 was the climbing. And then now 2023, I wanted to do my first ultra marathon, which is running for 52 kilometers.
52.
Yes. And I wanted...
Marathon is 42.
Exactly.
So you've added 10 more
Yeah.
kilometers.
So I wanted to do this in America.
Yeah.
There's the BMW Dallas Marathon. But after a couple of attempts to get a visa, it had some issues.
Yeah.
And then last year, through the efforts that I've been doing all this time, I got nominated again for the Global Epilepsy Ambassador Award, which was going to happen in Dublin, Ireland. And then, lucky enough, I got the award from Africa.
Yeah.
So I figured out when I'm in Ireland, I can go to London.
Yeah.
Because the London run was happening, and there is a segment for ultra marathon there.
Okay.
So I took that as an advantage.
You capitalized
exactly.
on the opportunity.
So in September, I went to Dublin. There was the conference. I had my presentations, and then I was given my award, and then now proceeded to do my ultra marathon.
Yeah.
And when I successfully did that and came back, I immediately started to think about my next expedition. And I think that's the reason why I was even requesting for an opportunity to be here today.
Yeah.
Because my next expedition is climbing Mount Fuji in Japan, which will be next month. Yes, July.
Okay.
Yes. And the reason for doing that still is to raise awareness about epilepsy. At least at this point in time, we have the numbers in terms of data and statistics.
Yeah.
In Kenya, we are talking about 1.5 million people living with epilepsy.
That's a huge population.
Very. And then in Africa, now where my interest lies at the moment, we are talking about 25 million people with epilepsy.
Yeah.
And we have very many organizations that are doing good work in terms of research and even in terms of raising awareness. For example, the International League Against Epilepsy, Africa Commission, is so much into research. They host a lot of webinars where people can get information. They bring in experts to talk about various types of epilepsies, which, if I'm not a doctor, from that perspective, I'm able to understand what is really happening. Yeah. And we also have now the International Bureau for Epilepsy, which is anchored more on doing epilepsy awareness, even at a global level, apart from just Africa.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. And listening to those stories and the many adventures that you have engaged in, currently the misconceptions and the myths that we have still, even in 2024, how can people move away from that and help people who are living with epilepsy? Because the myths and the misconceptions, unfortunately, they lead parents or people with relatives who are epileptic to either hide them because in a way they are seen as a shame to the family.
And even misinforming them of what epilepsy really is. You know, the interesting fact about epilepsy for me is that I knew about epilepsy first time when I watched that film about Jesus. Because when you watch the film about Jesus, at some point, a man was brought with seizures.
Yeah.
And I think it's in Matthew 17 or 14 there, I'm not so sure. But when the boy was having those seizures, which clearly even in the Bible describes it as epilepsy, Jesus went close to him. And then when the shadow of Jesus was cast on this man, he said, the evil spirit of epilepsy left the man. You see?
Yes.
So even learned people still have that understanding that epilepsy is caused by, evil spirits, or it's a curse from God, or as we have said, witchcraft and the like. But this is purely a medical condition, and anyone is at risk of getting what? Epilepsy. Because if you're talking about a damage of the brain that can be caused by an injury, there are a lot of injuries that happen out here. Yeah. So we are trying to make people understand that epilepsy is a medical condition. Anyone can be at risk of getting epilepsy. And we don't want to say, I'm a reverend myself, and so I will not dispute the fact that we pray. Because I'll tell you for a fact that such like conditions, people are quick to go for prayers than seeking medical attention. Because of how this condition manifests. I tell you, today, some years back, if you would have seen how my sister gets a seizure, it's very scary. Because she would make some sound that is so scary before she falls down, and then the jerking, and then the foam coming out, and then if they have fallen, maybe they have hit their head, there is blood coming out. It's so scary to an extent that you might forget that you need to rush them to the hospital, and you try to pray and do all manner kind of stuff. And the prayers work, but we also need to always do that with a lot of understanding. If it's a medical condition that can be taken care of in the hospital, please take that person to the hospital. The thing that you can do is offer some first aid. And it's important for people to know how an epilepsy first aid is done. Number one, you stay calm if a seizure happens. And number two, if there are any objects that can cause more injuries to this person, you remove them. And then you loosen any tight clothing that they are having. And then if it's a place where maybe it's a hard, rocky place, try and find something soft and put it beneath their head. And stay with them. Mostly a seizure might last ikienda sana between 3 and 5 minutes. After that, huwa imeisha, but it can reoccur in different episodes. If it persists, that's when you either call some help or an ambulance or rush them to the hospital. Things that people have also been doing thinking it's first aid and it's not, is like putting something in their mouth.
I remember growing up, we could hear people say, ukiona ameanguka, weka
kijiti, kijiko. So we advise that that shouldn't be done because it can cause even more harm. You know, when they're having a seizure, their muscles tighten. So even by the time you're trying to push something in there, it can't. And then if it is a short-term episode of a seizure that is happening, if it's over and muscle relax and you have been there trying to push something, it can even choke them and even kill them. So you're not supposed to do that. Do not also restrain them, you know, when they're jerking. Don't call a whole family and say, you hold the leg, you hold the hand. Don't restrain them, because that's the only way a seizure can manifest. And then when it's over, they will be okay. Do not give them any drink or any food in that period when they are experiencing a seizure as well. So I think those are very basic things that people can do, and to just remind people that epilepsy is not contagious. It cannot be passed from one person to another, because that is what other people also think. To an extent, if they find someone on the street having seizures, they are not ready to do what? To help this person. And that is not good. So they cannot pass it from themselves to you by virtue of you touching them.
Right.
Yes.
What should the society do to help in this fight?
Number one, the society should develop a sense of acceptance for these people living with epilepsy. I know it should be so for so many other chronic conditions, but because of the myths and misconceptions that have been there because of epilepsy, the society should develop that sense of acceptance. And first, seeing these as human beings and as people first, before even putting that tag of having epilepsy. We discourage people from describing people living with epilepsy as epileptics, because then it removes that sense of you are a person even before you have this condition, you see. So we stop tagging them. Exactly. And that is where the society can really play a big role. The other thing that the society can help us do is identifying these people, its children, because I can tell you there are so many children who are capable, and for the fact that they only experience seizures, they have even been denied an opportunity to go to school. So they are locked in there. And if this child is given medication and seizures are controlled, they can go to school. They can get to a level of going to the college. If they grow old enough, they can marry, they can get married, they can have families, you see. So the society needs to stop tagging these people as people who cannot measure up for anything. They don't have a life. Exactly, because that is what now puts them down, and they are unable to live to their full potential. And the other thing that they can do, it's not very expensive to manage epilepsy, but statistics also show that many of the people that have been affected also live in very poor setups or conditions. And so even that medicine that you think is not expensive to be bought, then there are others who cannot afford. And so the society needs to know that they can be able to support these people when they require or when they need that kind of support, especially access to medication.
And talking about that was the society. Now for the family that is taking care of a loved one, how should a family take care of a loved one?
Wow, that's a very important area, because family always complements the treatment journey of the person who has epilepsy. And they complement in this way, that this person, when he or she is unable to remember taking medication, there'll always be a person in the family that is ready to help them, take their medication on time. They say that one person who has epilepsy indirectly affects about 5 people. And I've seen that even in our family. Like, it's our sister who has epilepsy, but at the end of the day, everybody else is concerned. So in the evening, we will all come from whatever we were doing, and you will hear one say, has our sister been given medicine? Has somebody else will also ask that. Like, it's a concern. And secondly, as a family is a very strong pillar to this person who is suffering from epilepsy. That psychosocial support that this patient needs and requires. The people and even the neighbors, they might not show readiness to accept him or her, but family will always be there for this person. And it really, that show of love and concern really complements even in the treatment journey. Because sometimes you have the medicine, but if you don't have the full support, you can be taking your medicine and still experiencing seizures because you are thinking even the family thinks that I'm never going to get better from this point.
Right.
Yes.
Rev, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
It's too much, and even what you are doing to create awareness is on another level. The events that you are doing. How do you actually prepare? Physically, mentally, spiritually? How do you prepare?
I mean, like right now, for Kilimanjaro, I had to prepare for almost a year.
Yeah.
Doing all these other mountains.
So you don't just wake
climbing.
up and
you
say,
don't just wake
Kilimanjaro.
up. The cycling, we had to make sure that in our daily practices, we have done almost 1,000 kilometers. Wow. When we just wanted to cover about 382 kilometers from Nairobi to Arusha. So this time also, of course, I need to be in the gym. I need to, like, Ngong Hills here now has become like my daily trail that I have to just do. Next weekend I'll be doing Mount Longonot, and then I'll be finishing up with the Rurimeria Hills in Aberdares and Elephant Hill. So I need to do all that to acclimatize, because Mount Fuji is, they describe it as a snow mountain. So that is what makes it really difficult and tough. But and of course, psychologically and spiritually, as you say, I do a lot of prayers. Every time you are stepping out of the country to another country, you really need to pray and ask God to go right ahead of you. And even prepare people that will be welcoming. And thank God that there is the Japan Epilepsy Society and Japan Epilepsy Association that are really looking forward to, welcome me and see how they can help.
Rev, your parting shot. Even as we
so my parting shot is in that same spirit of support. This is always an expedition or an event that requires resources, and thanks to organizations like International League Against Epilepsy, Africa Commission, who have come through, the Foundation for People with Epilepsy also, an organization that I volunteer and work for based in Malindi, is also part of this journey, which is really supporting. And my parting shot would be every person in their own little way. It might not be going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro or Mount Fuji, but in their own little way, they can raise awareness about epilepsy. And that is what we want the message to go out there to all over Africa, that the 25 million people who are living with epilepsy in Africa can be informed. And if not them, then their family members can be informed. And we can create an environment where everybody feels safe to come out and even share their story of what they are going through with their experience of living with epilepsy. Yes.
All right. If we wanted to get in touch with you, if we wanted to contact you, how can we?
I'm very active in social media as Frederick Beuchi. On all media, on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, Frederick Beuchi. And also, I have a very active number that people can always call in to inquire. It's 0729 747 026. 0729 747 026. But on all social media platforms, you search for Frederick Beuchi or Angaza Kifafa na Beuchi, and you will find me there. And together we continue raising awareness for epilepsy in Africa.
Awesome. Rev Beuchi, thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for the sacrifice to be here this morning, despite all the mandamanos and all. Thank you so very much. Regards to your family, and especially Mercy. And tell her God has great plans for her. And she will live up to be who God has called her to be. And also to your siblings and your parents as well. Hata ikiwa ulikuwa unawaficha kidogo. Now see
right
God,
now
God
they know everything.
I believe they are very proud of you.
Very. I was with them over the weekend and they were wishing me all the best even as I prepare for this next expedition. So It's always been
and
good.
we join them in wishing you the very best as you are preparing for the Fuji event in Japan next month.
Next month.
Yeah, and may God bless you. May He go before you, straightening every crooked path for you. Victory, even as you are creating awareness for all the epileptic people and the epilepsy campaign in the country, in the continent, and in the larger world as well. Thank you so much. Asante sana. That's all we had time for this morning, one day at a time. And we hosted Rev Beuchi, and he was just telling us his story with and on epilepsy. You know, the sister and all that. Now that triggered him to be a campaigner, and he's doing exploits to create awareness about epilepsy. Don't hide them. You know, they are normal people. All they need is care. All they need is love, and they will lead a normal life. So make sure that you are showing them all those things. Thank you so very much. That has been one day at a time. And remember also, if you missed our earlier conversation about the ongoing demonstrations with the Gloria Kimani, LSK council member, you can catch a repeat of the same on our YouTube channel. Just a reminder that they have a toll-free number. That is the lawyers, the Law Society of Kenya. Their toll-free number is 0800 720 434, just in case you or your friend or a family member has been arrested during the demonstrations. You can get in touch with the LSK for assistance. 0800 720 434. Remember, as you are exercising your democratic right, don't infringe on other people's rights. Do it within the confines of the law. Let us agitate within the confines of the law without going overboard as well. We continue to pray for this nation. We don't have a substitute. We don't have an alternative. It shall be well, and the Lord is still with us, and Kenya will come out victorious at the end of it all. My name is George Gishuru. On behalf of the entire team, from Ndiko Mutinda, our director, to our producer Eunice, to our cameraman Mr. Whiteman Abdil, we wish you a blessed and a fruitful day ahead. Kutoka kwetu, it's bye-bye for now.